Where's this thing at? Let's see. Not that. This thing. Oh, there it is. Oh, there we go. Welcome to Spookshow Rewind number 5, the first one here on YouTube. It's had a little bit of a sordid history, but before we get into that, let's introduce ourselves because you may or may not know us. I'm Josh. I'm joined here with Donny.
Hey.
And the Professor Smoak.
Mm-hmm.
We are from the All-American Spookshow Podcast, and we usually have one of our cohorts, Will. He'll rarely make appearances on these videos. Let's just be honest. But if he does, or if you just hear this random fourth voice on one of the podcasts, you're like, "Who's that dude?" That's who we're talking about.
That's Will.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So like, this is a series that's kind of lived in two different places, but even before this, the very first episode was just an audio podcast that we did like back toward the beginning of the year. And then the 2, 3, and 4 of this series were Patreon exclusives, I believe.
Yeah.
So now we decided to kind of lift this off Patreon and make it a video, and it's going to live here on our YouTube channel. The intention of this series is to kind of go back to the beginning of the archives when Donny wasn't on the show. Just to kind of go back on our history a little bit. Smoak, myself, and Will, we started the podcast in October of 2018. And then it wasn't until, good Lord, Donny, you helped me out.
March 2021.
Yeah, it was episode 50 something, give or take. Whatever, when you came
episode
on.
55. Yeah, you started me off with one of the worst movies we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. Before
anyway,
there was Crapsterpiece, there was,
Yeah.
Wait, which movie was it now, too?
Oh, it was Into the Dark, Crawlers.
Oh,
Yeah,
boy,
so-
yeah.
That's subjective. If that's the worst thing, I don't know. That's a
No, I
debate
said
for another
one
day.
of the worst.
Okay.
Definitely
Well,
not the worst. But yeah, splitting hairs.
if you want to hear all that mess, go into the archives. But that's kind of the point of this, though, is to a chance for Donny to speak his piece on the movies that we've done in the past before he came on board, and also give Smoak a chance to give a Gore Score, because this is something we didn't start until like episode 20 something, 30 something. I believe it was the Monster Squad episode. Once again, we've got impeccable timing with these certain things that we've added on over the years. But Smoak didn't do a Gore Score in the past, so this will give him an opportunity to do that. But if we haven't mentioned it, we're talking again about episode number 5 in the archives of the Spook Show, The Return of the Living Dead.
Did you see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
I don't think it's hyperbole to say this is one that we all love. So it'll be interesting to see what Donny has to say about it. We'll let him do his segment that he normally does on the podcast as well, with the connections from the Crypt, and like I said, his Smoak's Gore Score, and we'll get Donny's star rating so we can kind of add it to the consensus and see what we come up with. So that's the whole point of this series, and also we're not going to take the deep dive into it like we do on the episodes. We encourage you to go to the archives of the Spook Show. I believe it's right here on the YouTube channel as well. And find episode 5 all the way back from, good Lord, what was that, January of 2019. It was directed by Dan O'Bannon, stars Clu Gallagher, who unfortunately just passed away. I saw that like within the last month or two. James Karen, Don Calfa, Linnea Quigley. That's Scream Queen.
Do you ever wonder about all the different ways of dying?
We'll start first just on your thoughts of the movie now that you finally got a chance to sit down and watch it, and just what are your thoughts, and then we'll get into your...
Well, it's not really like I've finally gotten to sit down and watch it. It's like, man, I've seen this movie at least a dozen, well, I would say at least half a dozen times over the years. I think the very first time I watched it, I was probably maybe 10, talking like, late 80s, early 90s. I mean, when I was growing up, I guess, our different, how our folks raised us or, different, they kind of kept us away from this shit.
Yeah.
But no, it's like, we would eventually, kind of get a hold of movies like this, but it's just a hoot. It's so much fun. It's so much fun, basically from the beginning.
That is the easiest way to say that it's just a fun movie to watch.
Yeah.
It really is. Because there's not a lot of serious moments in the movie, but there are a couple of dark moments. Obviously, it's a dark comedy, right? Because it's dealing with death and reanimation of corpses and everything like that. But they do it in a comedic way.
Yeah, you're dealing with death, but like when I was a kid, one thing that kind of appealed to me about it, like it wasn't like overly gory. Like it was still kind of gross out. It was still, kind of gooey, icky and all that stuff, but it was just enough gross out to be, without all of the, splatter, guts and everything that I enjoy now.
It is definitely one of those, if you take out a few of the more harsher scenes in it, it really kind of is like a gateway horror movie in a way. If you take if you take those out of it, because then it's just kind of a funny.
Yeah. I guess if you're talking, kids and horror, I mean, we, most of these movies from, this era, we watched when we were kids.
All right. So before we get into your connections from the Crypt, Donny, and everything like that, you want to give your final thoughts and your star rating on it?
Oh man. This is just, it's just a really fun movie. This is what horror comedies kind of aspire to be, to have this level of, I guess, fandom, even, so many years later. I mean, we're talking what, I'm awful at math, probably 35 years.
37.
37. Yeah. This is what you want, your movie to be, whether it's, any genre, but horror comedies, this is it the blueprint? No, but it's, it's certainly one of the best. So that alludes to my star rating.
It's not a bad question, Bert.
Yeah, I'm flat 4 stars. I think it's worth that. Certainly nothing less.
Don't be afraid. I'm buzzing in the damn head.
Well, with that being said, I can tell you what the consensus score of all 4 of us is now. It's a flat 4 stars, because that's what Will, myself, and Smoak gave it all the way back in January of 2019. So
right on.
That'll keep it at a flat 4 stars. So obviously we highly recommend
Pretty
it.
Good.
The pain of being dead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and now I guess we'll go ahead and give you an opportunity to do your connections.
Connections from the Crypt.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you listen to the podcast, but if you're new to the Spookshow Rewind, basically what we do with the Crypt Connections is we connect the current movie to past Spookshow episodes. In connecting Linnea Quigley from The Return of the Living Dead, she was also in our previous episode of Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Josh's favorite, Summer Camp from 1979. This is going all the way back to Camp Spookshow when we did that cult corner cult movie. But also on the crew side, we have some stunt crew members that also worked on The Conjuring and Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. Also some makeup effects crew members who worked on Pet Sematary from 1989 and Never Too Young to Die, as well as Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. So those are our connections.
I was just thinking it would have been a lot harder to do this bit if you were here from day one, because if you were only having to connect it back to like the previous 4 episodes to this.
Like, well, we've got this French horn player that's
the French horn guy that's done 2,000 movies or whatever it was.
Something. I'll have to find him. He's just a running joke.
Send more paramedics.
All right, so like we said, back when we first started, Smoak didn't do the Gore Score. Now, I guess, Smoak, if you want to explain exactly what the Gore Score is, just for a second before you give it out for this one.
Gore Score.
Oh yeah. Since we're doing this on video, might as well show it. And people who have been listening to this already know, but Gore Score is based on horror journalist Chaz Balin, the late horror journalist Chaz Balin. He died back in 2009, unfortunately, but he's always been one of my favorite horror journalists, writers, editors. He wrote a few books. I mean, he wrote a few fiction books, and those are these two. But he wrote a lot of horror journal type books, reference books, if you will. One of them was called the Gore Score, and I got that right here. So if I can get my light not to, there we go.
Yeah, there it is.
So that's the Gore Score. This is the namesake of the Gore Score. So he would review movies in this little digest-sized book and give this Gore Score for it based on 0 to 10.
Send more cops.
So this movie, I checked to see what he gave it, and this is usually how I do this. If it's an older movie, in other words, one that he would have rated during this time period, I'll check it and see what he gave it. And occasionally I might change it a little bit depending on whether I think it maybe was a little bit more or less gory. This one he gave a 7, and I think I'm gonna stick with a 7. I think that's a good round number. As Donny was saying, it's not too overly gory. It's comedic. It's not any sort of a super amounts of splatter, or it's certainly not any mean-spirited type gore and brutality or whatever. But it was R-rated, so it wasn't unrated as Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead were. So you weren't going to get as much gore in an R-rated movie anyway. So they didn't have to really, I guess, trim anything out of it, or if they did, they never went back and released it unrated. But I think a 7 is a solid rating for the gore. And also, might as well show this too while I got it. This is the novelization of Return of the Living Dead by John Russo. So, he kind of wrote this as a sequel of sorts to Night of the Living Dead, and that I think we might have mentioned it in that episode when we did the full episode. But Romero kept the Of the Dead title, so hence you have Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Russo took Living Dead with him. So you have Return of the Living Dead and its sequels, as well as Children of the Living Dead. So that was an interesting thing, I thought, for whatever reason they decided to go that route to keep their movies. Since both of them came out with the idea of Night of the Living Dead, they both claimed to create the zombie genre pretty much as we know it.
That's why you stupid hungry.
All right, well, there you go. That's it for this edition of Spookshow Rewind. So we encourage you, like I said, to go into the archives and find episode 5 to listen to our thoughts on it all the way back to January of 2019. And we also take a deeper dive there into the background and all the information and everything. And also you can hear Will speak. So if you want to hear him talk, he's over on that. So like I said, it's here on the YouTube channel, but it's also, wherever you get your podcast, you can find it in the archives. And speaking of which, we also encourage you to subscribe to the podcast. We have new episodes that come out every Monday at 6 p.m. East, wherever you get your podcast, or shortly thereafter right here on the YouTube channel. And of course, we want you to go over to patreon.com/AASpookshow and become a patron, so you get to listen to Crapsterpiece Theater. You get to see the Professor's Library, the Professor segments every month, all kinds of cool stuff going on over there. So thanks for watching, and come back next time for the next Grindhouse Gutter right here on the channel. All the podcasts are uploaded, and come back next time for the next Spookshow Rewind number 6, which, by the way, what movie is that next? Okay. Halloween from 2018.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be the next Spookshow Rewind. So come back for that. So for Donny, Will, Professor Smoak, I'm Josh. We are the All-American Spookshow Podcast, and we will talk to you next time.